Welcome back, focused learners. Today, we're diving straight into a brand new explainer, and we are taking a totally neutral structural approach to unpack what is honestly a genuinely chilling chronological sequence of events. We're looking at this deeply atmospheric piece of folklore from Bihar, India, going all the way back to 1990. We're going to map out the geography of the mystery, build a timeline of terror, and logically piece together an unsettling narrative that completely blurs the line between the living and the dead. So let's just get right into it.
So I want you to ask yourself a question. What actually happens when the people you're talking to are no longer alive? Keep that deeply unsettling thought right in the back of your mind. It is absolutely the ultimate hook for the suspense-driven narrative we're about to explore. We're going to see exactly how geographic isolation, delays in information, and deep-rooted folklore all kind of collided to create a terrifyingly real experience for a man named Zahid.
All right, starting with part 1, a month-late letter.
To really wrap our heads around this tragedy, we've got to cast our minds back to 1990. No cell phones, no instant messaging, global communication relied entirely on physical mail. Our subject here, Zahid, originally hails from a small village in Bihar, India, but he's settled in Australia for his studies. Well, one day in October, a letter finally shows up at his Australian residence, and it carries devastating news. On September 1st, exactly 1 month prior, his father passed away. Completely crushed that he missed the funeral and the final rites, Zahid doesn't even hesitate. He immediately books his flights, traveling from Australia through Mumbai and finally landing in Patna, Bihar, just desperate to be with his grieving family. Now, when Zahid touches down, his childhood buddy Rajiv is there waiting to pick him up. Rajiv is super sympathetic, offering his condolences and saying, "I feel so bad, man. Everything happened together and in such a short time." But then things get weird. Instead of just dropping Zahid off, Rajiv inexplicably begs him not to stay at his own ancestral house. He actually warns Zahid that if he goes inside alone, he's going to suffocate and die, practically pleading with him to just crash at his place instead. But Zahid, driven by loyalty to his family, absolutely refuses.
To understand why Rajiv was freaking out so much, we really have to look at the location of Zahid's home. It sits squarely in the middle of a qabristan. Now, a qabristan is a graveyard in Islamic tradition. But this isn't just like a house situated near a graveyard. Zahid's family has been the generational caretakers of this land. The house is completely surrounded by graves. Some are ancient, some are fresh, and some are dug and just waiting.
Which brings us to part 2, the house in the graveyard. So Zahid walks into this decaying structure, and he's immediately startled by his mother, Fatima. Her very first words to him are, "You took too long, son." After this really emotional embrace, Zahid begs his mom to pack her bags and move to Australia with him. I mean, there's nothing left for her in this tiny village of barely 30 people. But Fatima refuses. She tells him that while his father was alive, she belonged there. But ever since his death, the house simply won't let her leave. She claims this literal invisible force stops her right at the graveyard gate. She physically cannot cross the boundary. Zahid, obviously frustrated and super skeptical, vows he's going to sell the house the very next day.
That first night, Zahid is completely unable to sleep, so he steps out into the graveyard to smoke a cigarette. And amidst the sea of tombstones, his eyes lock onto a nameless, freshly filled grave. Suddenly, he gets this incredibly eerie feeling that someone is watching him from right behind it. As he steps a little closer, a hand grabs his shoulder out of nowhere. It's his mother. She reprimands him, telling him, "You shouldn't be near the dead so late at night," and she pulls him back inside. Zahid goes back to bed, but he spends the entire night just paralyzed by fear, acutely feeling this unseen presence lying right beside him in the dark.
Moving right along to section 3, the broker's terror.
The very next day, absolutely determined to get his mother out of there, Zahid fetches this boastful big city real estate broker to sell the property. But the second this broker steps foot inside the house at sunset, his entire demeanor just shatters. The guy literally loses his voice. He drops to the floor, grabbing his throat, choking as if an invisible pair of hands is violently strangling him. Panicking, Zahid asks what's wrong, and the broker just desperately rasps for a glass of water. So Zahid sprints to the kitchen, where his mother is just standing there quietly, grabs the water, and runs back to the broker in the hall. After finally catching his breath, the broker outlines this truly terrifying theory. He says, look, there are 3 types of people in the world: those who don't feel ghosts, those who feel them, and those who actually see them. The broker looks at Zahid with pure, unadulterated terror and says, "I am the 3rd type. There are literally 20 to 30 spirits standing right beside your mother." He claims these entities are actively trying to violently throw him out of the house. And refusing to take the job, the broker just flees for his life into the night.
Let's unpack part 4, Trapped by Spirits.
After the guy runs off, Zahid is desperately trying to rationalize this bizarre event. But Fatima sits him down and confesses a super dark family secret. She reveals that in his final days, Zahid's father had completely descended into madness. While patrolling the graveyard, he started seeing hands reaching out from the soil. And worse, he heard voices from what local folklore calls impure graves, spirits begging for shelter, demanding to move into their ancestral home. The father couldn't handle the psychological torment and he passed away shortly after. Now, Fatima claims those unseen forces have actually claimed the house. She says they turn off the lights, and at night she physically feels a heavy entity pressing down on her chest.
Okay, part 5, the Amavasya night.
Extremely frustrated, Zahid storms out to meet Rajiv at a local dhaba, and Rajiv warns him that tonight is Amavasya. If you don't know, in local folklore, Amavasya is the dark new moon night when the veil is thinnest and spirits roam completely freely. Rajiv literally begs Zahid to just stay at his place for the night. Zahid, of course, brushes it off. But on the pitch-dark drive back to the house, Zahid catches a glimpse of an apparition walking on the road, and it looks exactly like his mother, just wandering in the dead of night.
Zahid rushes into his house in a panic, but he doesn't find his mother wandering outside. Instead, he finds her sitting in her room staring completely blankly out the window toward the graveyard. Zahid looks out to see what she's staring at, and he sees a figure sitting at that exact same nameless grave from his first night, and this guy is crying hysterically. Assuming it's just a grieving local, Zahid steps outside to comfort him. He places a hand gently on the man's shoulder. The man turns around, and it is Zahid's dead father. Zahid instantly faints from the shock. No warning, just out cold. When he finally wakes up the next morning, he tries desperately to convince himself it was all just a terrible nightmare. But the suffocating dread is just way too much. He immediately packs his bags, and as he's leaving, his mother stops him, pleading with this haunting desperation. "You'll come back, right? You won't leave us alone?" Zahid promises her he will, but he instantly flees to Rajiv's house, hiding out there for 10 days, before finally getting on a plane back to the safety of Australia.
And now, Section 6, The Horrifying Truth.
So Zahid finally arrives back at his home in Australia. He walks in and he finds a big stack of delayed mail just waiting for him. He opens the very first envelope. It's another letter from his friend Rajiv written well over a month ago. Zahid reads the words and his blood runs absolutely cold. "Zahid, exactly 1 week after your father's passing, your mother passed away on September 8th. Come quickly." This is the crushing, dramatic irony of the whole story. His mother, Fatima, had been dead long before Zahid even boarded his very first flight to India. When you look at this timeline, the overlap of dates comes into terrifyingly sharp focus. The father passes away on September 1st. The mother passes away just a week later on September 8th. Zahid doesn't even arrive in Bihar until October. So if you do the math on that, it proves that every single conversation Zahid had in that house, every embrace, every cup of water he handed to the broker, was with a ghost. It leaves us with this incredible, chilling contrast of dual realities. Think about it. In Zahid's perceived reality, he was there comforting his grieving, living mother. But the actual reality? Zahid was trapped inside a house entirely surrounded by entities. That nameless grave he saw on the very first night, that was his mother's grave. The man crying over it on the Amavasya night, that was his dead father's spirit, mourning his newly deceased wife. Suddenly, Rajiv's cryptic warnings and the real estate broker's absolute terror make perfect, horrifying sense.
Completely unable to process this, Zahid actually takes a flight right back to Patna. He walks into his ancestral home one final time, and it is completely empty. Thick dust covers the floors, but as he stands there in the dead silence, a disembodied phantom voice echoes right through the halls. "You took too long, son." Zahid doesn't even turn around. He simply walks out of the Qabristan forever.
We're going to conclude this explainer with a really provocative thought drawn straight from the folklore source material. Spirits often don't know they are dead. The entities wandering around us right now might just be reliving their daily routines, completely unaware that they have actually passed on. It kind of leaves you wondering about those odd passing interactions you might have had in your own life, right? Were they all real? Well, I hope this structured breakdown of the Qabristan mystery brought this incredible narrative to light for you. Keep analyzing, keep learning, and I'll catch you guys in the next explainer.